Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Comrade, friend, brother, and sister. Thank you for joining to the second webinar for AROS webinar. This webinar is about the digital technology and solidarity economy in Asia. I think this is very important. Why we must discuss about the digital technology, also solidarity economy, because we have of the problem or the background. For example, is the first is we the situation, global situation with their revolution, industry revolution 4.0, COVID-19, also climate change, and capitalism crisis. Capitalism. This is important how for the social movement in Asia, we must have of the alternative or solution. For yesterday, we discussed more about the social protection and COVID. And this day, we try how we have to the alternative. For example, respond for the digital technology and also solidarity economy. In this day, we have of 3 sessions. For the first, we will discuss about the digital technology. For the digital technology, the moderator is Professor Rosalinda Opreneo. And we have 2 speakers, Benjamin Velasco, also Pino Lucero. And after then, for the second session, the moderator is Asaduddin, and the speaker is Dr. Benjamin Quinus, also Dr. Simel Esip. And the last session, we will to discussion about the digital technology and solidarity economy. And the moderator is Van Tuha. And we have, I think, many response. For example, from me, also from Punya Prasad Busal, Dr. Eri Trimnurini, also Comrade Ken Buddha Kusumandaru, and other participants. You can respond and discussion in the third session. And the last, for concluding and closing, my comrade Surinda Patrap, you can have up the remark for our webinar this day. I think for the time and I give to the Professor Rosalinda. Hello, Professor Rosalinda.
Hello.
Time for you to moderate to the first session about the digital technology. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sastro. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm very happy to extend to you the warm welcome of AROS, the Asian Roundtable on Social Protection, and also the Asian Solidarity Economic Council, ASEC, to which I belong and which is co-sponsoring this webinar. We hope our country networks in many parts of Asia will be able to participate productively in this webinar. May I please ask that my introduction be shared. Yeah, I prepared a short PowerPoint just so we are on the same level. Huh? So when I was trained as a journalist, maybe 100 years ago, we were told that whenever we talk about an event, we need to answer 4 key questions: what, who, where, and why. No? So next slide, please. So what are we talking about when we utter the phrase digital technology, digital economy, etc.? So let me just give a few definitions. So digital technologies are electronic tools, systems, devices, etc. that generate, store, or process data. Well-known examples, because we use them on an everyday basis, would be online media, the internet, multimedia, and mobile phones, to which most of us are connected to the rest of the world. No? The digital economy results from billions of everyday online connections among people, businesses, devices, data, and processes. The backbone of the digital economy is hyperconnectivity, which means growing interconnectedness of people, organizations, and machines that results from the internet, mobile technology, and the Internet of Things. As Sastra earlier mentioned, we are now in the 4th industrial revolution. So the first one relied on steam power, the second on electricity. So we had machine-based mass production. The third, very recently in the late 60s, application of electronic and information technology to automate production. And now we are at a very advanced stage that is characterized by artificial intelligence, robotics, biotechnology, cloud computing, etc. Next slide, please. So now we need to ask, who are the various actors and stakeholders when we talk about the digital economy? So if we look at the political economy of digitalization, we see that the dominant force would be transnational corporations, otherwise known as big tech, GAFAM, including Globe, Facebook, Microsoft, mainly in the industrial north. But we also have Alibaba, showing the rising role of China in this technology race. No? And then, of course, we have the nation states who need to talk about and need to regulate, if possible, this huge network that is really dominating the world. We have multilateral organizations, UN-based ones, ILO, UN Women, etc., that are in the Human Rights Committee. They're all raising alarm bells on the impact of digital technology. And everywhere we are talking about this new notion of digital rights, and we are all digital citizens of the world. No? And in our particular case, because AROS is really a worker-based roundtable, we would like to elaborate more on the rights, whether they are enjoyed or not by formal labor, by workers in the informal economy, by those in between formal and informal, the gig economy, platform economy, and of course the women, children, older persons, the persons with disability that are in the margins. When we talk about where, of course, we know that as a primary site of struggle is the internet. Who controls it, who regulates it, what's the content, etc. And social media too, which has now dominated mass communications. We have global venues earlier referred to. And yesterday we have regional and sub-regional organizations, particularly ASEAN, talking about the digital age and how we all need to adjust to it and maybe use it for our benefit and minimize its disadvantages. Of course, I already mentioned the labor organizations that need to really struggle with employers and how digital technology has influenced the workspace, like what happens when you work from home, or what happens when you're no longer employed formally, but you are at the mercy of Grab or Uber or whoever are the big players on the platform economy. And then we also need regulatory and legislative bodies. And there's now a lot of talk about laws that need to be passed by states. And of course, we know that during the pandemic, even basic education has transitioned to online modes. And when we talk about solidarity economy, we also need to see how organized communities, producer and consumer groups across the supply chain are able to be included, or are they excluded from the digital mode of commerce and finance. Okay, next slide, please. I think this is about so why are we holding this session? Well, we have a number of reasons. I will just go through them very quickly, because we now have this rapid digitalization related to the pandemic, with commercial, financial, and even education and information activities increasingly done online. Because there is now a very apparent and worsening digital divide intersecting with the North-South divide, the gender divide, urban-rural divide, age divide, etc. So we need to talk about intersectionality of these various intersecting hierarchies that sort of imprison us, but in another sense can also empower us if we know how to use what resources we have on hand. And then we have violation of digital rights. So we will listen to this later. So regarding internet access and freedom, data control, privacy, rampant online violence, disinformation, and manipulation. And then because we are in a ROSP, we need to also connect what's happening to social protection mechanisms that are rapidly being digitized, and maybe hasten the transition from digital exclusion to inclusion. And then we need to connect digital inclusion to developing social solidarity economy organizations as a pathway to people-centered and sustainable recovery, assuming that we are ready in a post-COVID transition period. And we need to see the interconnections among economic, social, gender, and digital justice. So next slide, please. Who are the speakers in this session? It would be good to get to know them. So the first one is a dear friend. His name is Benjamin Velasco. We call him Benji for short. He is an assistant professor at the School of Labor and Industrial Relations of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He is also director of Soler Center for Labor and Grassroots Initiatives and co-convener of the Alternative Development Program of the UP Center for Integrative and Development Studies. Many of us have participated in the regional alternatives or alternative regionalism conferences that his institution has spearheaded in the last few years. What's interesting about him is before entering the economy, the academe, he was engaged for almost 30 years in the labor and social movements, and he is still engaged in the trade union movement. He recently co-authored a paper on the impact of digitalization on women workers in Asia during pandemic times, which will soon be published by FES. Next slide, please. And this, I think, is my last slide. And our next speaker is also a distinguished expert on the topic. His name is Zino Lucero. He is the Digital Rights and Communications Manager of EngageMedia, an Asia-Pacific nonprofit organization advocating for digital rights, open and secure technology, and video for change. He is a contributing author for the book Data Justice and COVID-19 Global Perspectives, published in London. He is also a fellow working on internet rights and is a national researcher for the Global Data Barometer. So without further ado, may we listen to our first speaker, who has, I think, 7 minutes to do his presentation.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon to everyone. Can the slides be shared or presented?
Yeah, thank you. At the meantime, Ima, please give authorize for Chung to record Khmer one. Sorry, Benjamin.
Yeah, that's all okay. So again, good afternoon to everyone. Next slide, please. Digitalization has rapidly changed life for all, women and men, inside and outside the workplace. Since the onset of COVID, digitalization has presented opportunities and also threats. Whether the positive or negative effects predominate will depend on effective regulation and positive action. It will rely on the establishment of robust social protection and digital rights for all. Next slide, please. Digitalization is spearheaded by a few global firms: Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, and also, as earlier mentioned, Alibaba of China. The North-South divide has widened even more, with digital corporate power located mainly in the industrialized countries. China too has become a major digital power to contend with. Digital colonialism is a new form of domination and is underpinned by the competition among global tech companies for the e-commerce markets of the world, but also of the global south. In this new form of plunder, global tech corporations install expensive internet services, even as they harvest big data from the global south population for profit. They are also engaged in the exploitation of cheap, mainly female, labor of the South through the offshoring of digital services such as business process outsourcing. Without regulation, technology in the hands of profit-maximizing companies lead to the degradation of work, privacy issues, and also corporate abuse. Next slide, please. An important impact of digitalization in the world of work is the rise of what's called the platform economy. The importance of work using digital apps has increased even before COVID, but clearly the pandemic hastened the growth of platform work, as millions permanently or temporarily lost their jobs in the formal and informal economies after the onset of the pandemic. There was a noticeable shift in work towards the platform economy. For example, food delivery became frontline work amidst the lockdowns and employed an increasing number of workers. However, both before and throughout the pandemic, the informalization of platform jobs has made such work cheap, insecure, and also unsafe. In the platform economy, men and women are engaged as freelancers, not regular employees. Therefore, labor standards, occupational safety and health, and social protection are usually out of reach. Occupational segregation too in the labor market is reflected in the platform economy. Men dominate in such areas as app-based taxi and delivery jobs, while women are the majority in such platform services as encoding, transcription, writing, and editing. Few women, though, are working in platform-based technology and data analytics. Next slide, please. An estimated 1.3 to 1.5 million Filipinos, many of them are women, are employed in online freelancing even prior to the pandemic. These jobs were reported as least affected by COVID. In India, the number of app workers are increasing. In 2016, 8.5 million. In 2017, around 12 million. And then 15 million in 2018. There are also 2 million ride-hailing workers. But at the height of the lockdowns in India in 2020, app companies laid off up to 1/4 of their workers. As independent contractors, labor problems faced by such workers are not the responsibility of app companies since they are not employers by law. To cope with the pandemic, some gig workers either went back to their home province while others remained as platform workers so they could earn income to repay loans, such as those ride-hailing drivers who bought a vehicle. No wonder that the pandemic generated an outbreak in grievances and even protests among platform workers, especially those in food delivery. With the rise of online selling and door-to-door delivery before and during the COVID, an increasing number of women transitioned to gig work on an informal and temporary basis. Although women have benefited from the rise of platform work, such gains have been limited by structural gender barriers. For female workers to take full advantage of these labor market changes, purposive interventions in promoting labor force participation, also inclusive social protection are needed. Actions of trade unions and workers' associations to encourage female involvement and leadership are good starting points in this regard. Next slide, please. While COVID-19 has led to a leap in digitalization, it has also exacerbated the digital divide that reinforces social and economic disparities. For example, the restrictions on mobility after the start of the pandemic made it difficult for women workers in the informal economy to collect income support because many of them do not have digital bank accounts and they also lack access to mobile money transfer services. Thus, the gender gap in mobile internet access has directly led to the financial exclusion of women. Therefore, it is a policy imperative to develop universal access to and use of digital technology through such things as data allowances and subsidies, basic digital education, along with provision of digital gadgets, promoting science, technology, engineering, and math education for all, funding reskilling and upskilling programs to facilitate digital employment for workers in both formal and informal economies. Government should also invest in digital public goods, beginning with the essential digital infrastructure for economic transactions. This would be affordable apps for making payments and authenticating identities to serve as alternatives to commercial apps, which charge huge fees. Next would be publicly funded e-commerce marketplaces that would prioritize products of micro entrepreneurs, artisans, farmers, and other small producers. Most of them would be women. Publicly managed labor portals could be set up to facilitate connection of service workers to potential clients. Seed funds should be awarded to unions, farmers groups, social enterprises, women producers, and other marginalized groups so that they can set up alternative platform models that can maximize their digital gains and increase their net income. Digitalization, to reiterate, can be a force for good or bad depending who owns it, wills it, or controls it. Digital rights must therefore be recognized and guaranteed. Digital public goods and services must be provided for all, with a focus on ensuring that women and girls can acquire digital skills, education in science, technology, engineering, and math, also internet access and gadget ownership. Finally, participatory mechanisms that will enable organized workers in both the formal and informal economies, as well as women's rights and other civil society organizations, should be able to represent themselves in policymaking on digital concerns. Assuring digital rights is the primary responsibility of national governments, but its adoption will be enabled and encouraged by enshrining it in international conventions. And last slide, please. Just to close, allow me to acknowledge the FES Nepal and the Gender Justice Hub for the content of this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Benji, for this very concise but substantive presentation. So, and thank you also for keeping time. We now move on to our next speaker. Is Mr. Lucero in? So
Yes, I'm here.
the screen is yours. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much for that, Professor Salinda. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon from the Philippines. This is Vino Lucero from EngageMedia. Let me just quickly start sharing my screen. There. Okay. So since I am not from the labor sector advocacy group, I'm more of the digital rights side. I want to focus my presentation about the intersection of digital technology and human rights. I think it has been touched earlier, the term digital rights and how it figured in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. And then now that we are hopefully moving towards the end of the pandemic. So that is going to be my focus for this afternoon. Just to quickly introduce my organization. So EngageMedia is a nonprofit that promotes digital rights, open and secure technology, and social issue documentary. So we work with Asia Pacific and global change makers. So there are definitely opportunities if you want to learn more about digital rights. And for example, you are interested to become a digital rights defender, we have opportunities like capacity building and awareness building activities that you can join, which I will mention some later on. But for now, given that it has been repeated earlier, maybe we can focus for a bit about the concept of digital rights. So this is something that is not that mainstream yet. When it comes to local situations, as somebody that works in the South and Southeast Asia digital rights space, it is definitely noticeable that when we talk with the general public, human rights is definitely a familiar term. But when we discuss the term digital rights, it is something that is not that known to them. And in fact, even within civil society organizations, we have very different association and definition of the concept of digital rights. So one of the networks that EngageMedia convened, Coconut, it's composed of Asia Pacific digital rights defenders. Actually, within that group, there are different appreciation of the term as well. Some of them, they say that digital rights are the exercise of universal human rights in digital spaces. Meanwhile, some are saying that it is human rights which are inherent for ICT users and non-users. So there are nuances there, and for most of them, they agreed that digital rights are fundamental human rights in the digital environment. So if there is a specific human right, there is definitely a digital counterpart. So free speech and expression, association and assembly, digital inclusion, right, and access to information. Those are just quick examples about digital rights. So as mentioned earlier, that is something that is not that well known yet by the general public. And hopefully us as advocates, we can definitely mainstream this, especially in the context of us shifting more and more of our lives to online. So aside from using social media and doing some socializing and basic communications work online during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think this will linger on even after the pandemic, we will definitely be shifting more of our personal and then our advocacy and professional work online, not just because there will be lingering restrictions connected to COVID-19, but also we realize that there are things that work for us in the context of doing personal, professional, and advocacy work online. But with that being said, with that shift, I think it has been touched on earlier, more digital rights issues have been apparent. Some of it we will discuss one by one very quickly. And we also see unprecedented increase in livelihood work to online platforms. Take for example, I have friends who have shifted their physical shops to just online shops to avoid costs when it comes to rent. But then at the same time, there are implications as well as to the number of workers that they get for their businesses. So there's that nuance there. Just to quickly touch on some examples of digital rights issues, and maybe I can angle it in the context of labor. When it comes to online privacy, we see a lot of businesses or even those doing freelance work shifting their advertisements or promotions to social media. Take for example, unfortunately, social media platforms collect data and information related to our activities online. And with that being said, despite some of the countries in Asia having data privacy regulations, data protection regulations, social media platforms are still exploiting the data, not just the personal identifiable data, yeah, but the habits and how we interact in the social media space. They collect it and use it for profit. So that is something that we need to be more aware of, especially when we do business on social media or online. We also see some rise on online gender-based violence. Some people doing upfront or honest business online are being targeted by those people who harass them based on their gender, maybe the targets being members of the LGBTQI plus group or women's group. So that is something as well. Digital inclusion with the shift of online learning in some countries to mostly online, a lot of people are being excluded in the learning movement. And then at the same time, with some groups or some offices moving to mostly online during and even after the pandemic, there are some issues there when it comes to affordability and availability even of stable and affordable internet connection. Identity theft and account hacking, this is something that is a primary concern of businesses shifting to online. Some of them took months to establish a well-followed Facebook page, take for example, for their business, but it ended up that their account was compromised and then their shop as well was compromised. So there are issues when it comes to that. And given that there are limitations when it comes to observation of online privacy, there is also restrictions when it comes to online freedom of expression. So take for example, if you use your personal account to do business, but then at the same time, you also use it for other purposes like to speak about your advocacy. Yeah, that's kind of easy to trace. And take for example, if somebody is hating on you because of your advocacy, they can target your business. So those are just some of the examples, and maybe we can discuss more later. So as we shifted more of our work online, there are definitely digital risks, but as advocates, yeah, and especially as digital rights defenders, we would like to share that we can set up layers of protection, may it be on an individual or organizational level. So first tip would be to practice digital hygiene. So the term hygiene might be confusing to some. Digital hygiene is basically oral hygiene, but for your online activity. Digital hygiene basically provides you quick tips and strategies to make sure that your accounts are safe online, your devices are receiving the highest level of safety or security, and it does not cost much. It's basically a set of tips that will help you that will prevent you from being too vulnerable when it comes to digital attacks or emergencies. So I will be sharing a link later on when it comes to a quick reference that you can check out about this. Second would be knowing your rights online. So there are definitely local and international agreements when it comes to digital rights or human rights online. But then at the same time, you also have regulations and agreements with the social media platforms that you interact on. So that is something that you should know and check as well, just so you know if there are mechanisms available, connecting to number 3, when it comes to reporting hate speech, discrimination, and other kinds of digital attacks. So knowing those might be great. And then number 4, we're going to the bigger picture, contribute to ensuring safe spaces online. So in general, if there is that notion that, social media communities or the online space should be safe for everyone, I think there is better observance of digital rights and safety. So contributing to this in one way or another might be something that you would like to explore. And lastly is building a community of practice when it comes to ensuring digital safety and observance of digital rights as well. So when it comes to improving individual and collective digital safety, I'm talking to organizations that are present. An organization is only as secure as its weakest link. So now that we have some level of awareness as to the need to improve digital safety within our communities or within our networks and organizations, it is also our collective responsibility to educate others about improving their digital safety. You might be practicing some digital hygiene strategies, but take, for example, if one of your team members are using passwords that are the name of their pets or their loved ones, they are definitely vulnerable when it comes to digital attacks. So educating others or raising awareness within your community about digital hygiene and digital safety is something that we can all contribute on. So yeah, that is it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vina, for all the guidelines and tips which we hope to access because, for on my part, I still have no idea how to protect accounts on the net. So I think all of us need an education on this, especially since we spend so much time now using our devices and, providing as well as receiving information through digital means. So again, thank you to both Assistant Professor Velasco and to Vino. Now we will shift to the next session. I think we will entertain questions and later, or you can put them on the chat box. There will be a discussion portion after the second session on solidarity economy. So may I now request Asad Udin, the Program Coordinator of the Bangladesh Occupational Safety, Health and Environment Foundation, to moderate this session. The OSHE is a specialized labor organization promoting labor standards, decent and green jobs, and it's a major platform for trade union centers in Bangladesh. So Asad, please continue.
Thank you, Rosalinda, and thank you for the speakers for their great presentation. Now, I am sharing my presentation. Can you see my presentation? Are you?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. Now the session is on solidarity, social economy, how people strengthen their power, and what is the importance of solidarity, social economy, and also solidarity economy as pushed by ILO, and also rules of economic actors, especially under COVID-19 and also neoliberalism. So we have two speakers with us in this session. So first of all, I would like to share some things and clarify the concept on SSC neoliberalism. The SSC means Solidarity Social Economy. Solidarity social economy is an alternative to capitalism and other authoritarian state-dominated economic systems. The difference is that in solidarity social economy, people's an active role. They can play an active role in decision making and in this whole process. And all of the dimensions: human life, economic, social, cultural, and political, also environmental. And also solidarity social economy exists in all sectors of economy, such as production, finance, distribution, exchange, consumption, and governments, and other cross-cutting issues. And it also aims to transform the social and economic system that includes public, private, and also third sector. And why social economy is important and how people strengthen their power by this social solidarity social economy. So an increasing number of people throughout the world are experiencing deteriorating living condition and depending poverty. That with the logic of capitalism, people and society become resources to be exploited. And in the world of work, and also climate change and just transition is one of the important issues in upcoming the world, because the environment of the world is degradation day by day. Peoples and workers are impacted by climate change. So in this extensive linear economic model leading to widespread pollution and climate change, and as solidarity social economy has potentiality important role to play in orienting economics and societies toward greater social and economical sustainability. And then neoliberalism also an important issues in the world of work or in the economy and future of the future, that neoliberalism basically contemporarily used as referred to market oriented people policies such as eliminating price controls, deregulating capital markets, lowering trade barriers, and reducing, especially through privatization and austerity, state influence in the economy. And it is also a policy model that compasses both politics and economics and seeks to transform the control of economic factors from the public sector to the private sector. And I already mentioned that we have two guest speaker and expert in these issues for a long time. They will now present their valuable speech on these issues. We have two speakers. First, Benjamin Arcoinas. He will present their valuable speech. And now I briefly identify you. I briefly present you the Benjamin Dr. Quinn's profile. Basically, Benjamin Arcoinas is the founder of Asia Solidarity Economic Council and also co-convener of Asia Solidarity Economic Council. Solidarity Social Economic Online Academy, and also he is the president and CEO of Farmer Bazaar. He is a lot of experience and works for a long time in this, and also he designed and helped implemented several agriculture cooperatives, solidarity economy, and also he include among others 5 dimensions of social solidarity economy. And also he subsequently he framework is adopted by the Asian Solidarity Economic Council of 5 dimension of SSC. Dr. Benjamin is closely related in this dimensions, and he also was a professional lecturer in several universities. And our second speaker is Dr. Simel Asim. She is the 12th ILO Cook Manager since 2012, and she holds a BA in Political Science and MA in International Economics and Middle East Studies. In economics, we take concentration in gender and development studies, and she also worked on social and economic development for the past 30 glorified years around the world. And in addition to cooperative social and solidarity economic development, she also experienced in another other issues such as she is expert and worked on gender equality, informal economy, and labor migrant issues. Now I would like to request Benjamin R. Coinens, and now over to you. It is your time, and your time is 10 minutes now. Please, Dr. Benjamin.
Thank you, Asad. May I request the Secretariat to upload my PowerPoint, please? So I will dwell on directly on 4 issues while my PowerPoint is being uploaded. The first is, why do we need economic alternatives to neoliberalization? The second is the importance of SSE as a countervailing initiative to the neoliberal market economy. The third is digital technology and social economic inclusion. And the fourth issue is the role of women in this digital economy. So is my PowerPoint being uploaded now, please?
Please go ahead. Your PowerPoint is presenting. Please, Irma, please next.
Okay, let me just start by saying that to address this issue of neoliberalization, we have to examine the relationships between individuals and society, between private and public, and between market and the state. According to Bridget Creswell, there is dualism of the concept of public and private. The first concept is that the state represents the public sphere or sector, and the market represents the private sphere. But there is a second dualism. The second is that the first tandem or collaborations between the state and the market apparatus, they represent the public sphere, providing the goods and services to address the needs of people. And on the other hand, the people, particularly families, civic voluntary groups representing the private. So in other words, the people, families, and civic society groups could represent the private sector or private sphere in one of these dualistic notion of public and private. Now, it is important to note that we people tend to focus more on the provisions of the state, and then we overlook the significance of the socioeconomic activities undertaken by families, by people, families and nonprofit civic voluntary groups. The reason for this is that we have been made to understand that the state's role via taxation and provide for safety net. Thus, we have directed our demands and desires to the state and look to it to secure our prosperity and safety net. After the Second World War, development strategy advanced by more developed countries aggressively promoted liberalization, privatization, and deregulation. Now, these processes of liberalization, privatization, and deregulation released to the market much of the natural resources that once belonged to the commons and enabled the for-profit companies to take over much of the services once undertaken by the state. So this has given rise to what we now know as the neoliberal market economy. Now, neoliberal market economy spurred high growth rates, but at the same time, it brought about an equal distribution of benefits. It has encouraged destructive and predatory operations of transnational corporations and takeover of public services, high-risk financial speculation, and the transnational corporations have risen to highly unregulated power and rolled back the function of the state as defender of the public interest. So this has resulted in the further exclusion, deprivation, vulnerable and marginal sector of society, and threatened the viability of the planet. So because of this, there was once a great philosopher who said, a thinker who said, the philosophers have interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. And this is the agenda of SSE. Now let me now go to the social solidarity economy as an alternative to neoliberalism. So capitalism principle in the organization of economic life is cooperation at the point of production, separation and automation at the point of reproduction. Now, the motto of social solidarity economy is resist and build. So in social solidarity economy, we seek to resist under the neoliberal market economy, while at the same time, it enables families and nonprofit civic voluntary groups to develop alternative transformative socioeconomic initiatives. Collective ownership, management, control of the material means of reproduction is the primary mechanism by the ecosystem by which the social solidarity ecosystem is established. This is also the first line of resistance to a life of vulnerability and marginalization under capitalism and the construction of autonomous spaces. Now, how is this related now to the digital economy and socioeconomic translation inclusion? Of course, technology, including digital technology, is designed for particular purposes, often by social actors with economic power to direct resources. This has been discussed by Professor Benji a while ago. But there are benefits of ICTs to SMEs, and this has been also mentioned. According to Beranger and Windrum, commercially, micro small enterprises can benefit significantly from digital economy due to their ability to extend their geographical reach, reacting swiftly to customer need, procurement, production, and logistics, and can be effectively handled for cost reduction. Huge potential for competitive advantage over global players for improvements in management skills and internal communication. In other words, digital economy can include as well as it can exclude. It is like a fence. When there is a common property and you put a fence in it, then you exclude people, but at the same time, you include people whom you would like to benefit from the use of these resources. So ECC stakeholders can make use of digital technology for purposes of number one, mobilizing material resources for reproduction and directing these resources to meet their needs. Number two, determine who can participate in the ECC collective reproductive ecosystem. Number three, pursue policies that serve the interests of those who own and in control of the ECC ecosystem. And number four, make rules and regulations for the distribution control among stakeholders, transparency of technical operations, and who can access and who can sanction. And on this note, I would like to say that ASEC, Asian Solidarity Economic Council, is setting up, organizing the Asian Solidarity Economy Forum in August 2022. And along the way, we're going to organize orientation workshops for the purpose of building what we call the ECC community builders. So this is, the point of really building the ECC community, and we would surely invite Aros and many of the participants here to participate in this forum, because we would like to make use of the opportunity to build ECC not only in the Philippines, Indonesia, and other countries, but hopefully we can join together and help build the ECC communities in various countries. So the impact on women, I would like to end with this topic. According to Sylvia Federic, capitalist accumulation is dependent on the free appropriation of immense quantities of labor and resources that must appear as externalities to the market, like unpaid domestic work that women provide and the uncompensated reproduction of the workforce. Utilization of digital technology by organized groups of women whose presence is dominant in the informal sector is crucial for the purpose of mobilizing labor and resource for the purpose of co-creating an alternative socioeconomic system. Here are some reasons why. Number one, women are the primary subjects of reproductive work, and they have depended on access to communal natural resources more than men. Number two, reproduction of human beings has been a collective process involving extended families and communities, but capitalism has privatized this process. And third, connecting families and communities via digital technology will empower women and boost the struggle for direct access to material means of reproduction. Federici said, arguing that women should take the lead in the collectivization of reproductive work and housing is not to naturalize housework as a female vocation. There's always been, the complaint of a human rights activist. But according to Silvia Federici, acknowledging the lead role of women in the collectivization of reproductive work is an act of refusing to obliterate the collective experiences, the knowledge, and the struggles that women have accumulated concerning reproductive work, whose history have been an essential part of resistance to capitalism. To paraphrase Dolores Hyden, the reorganization of reproductive work, and therefore the reorganization of housing and public space, is not a question of labor, nor a question of power and safety. Harnessing digital technology by organized groups of women to build an SSE ecosystem is like building new houses to form one compound. This perspective is inspired with the experience of women members of the Landless People's Movement of Brazil, who after winning the right to maintain the land they have occupied, they insisted on building their new houses to form one compound so that they could continue to communalize their housework, wash together, cook together, and be ready to run to give each other support when they are abused by men. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Benjamin, for your valuable and informative presentation. Basically, it needs a lot of time, but sorry for the time constraint. Now, I would like to, would like to request Dr. Simil Asim, is the 12th ILO co-manager. Over to you, Dr. Simil Asim. Your time is 10 minutes from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Asaduddin. Greetings, good afternoon, colleagues. Irma, could we have the presentation, please? Very happy to be with sisters and brothers from the Asia-Pacific region. At the ILO, as you may know, Irma, next slide, please. We are having a discussion this year at the International Labour Conference on decent work in the social and solidarity economy. This is the first time such a discussion is happening at the ILO. In fact, it's the first time such a discussion is happening at any high-level UN agency forum. There are conversations on having a UN resolution on the social and solidarity economy, but that hasn't yet materialized. So next slide, Irma, please. Today, in fact, the report in preparation for this meeting, meeting in June, is coming out in English, Spanish, and French, but other language versions, Portuguese, Italian, Japanese, Hindi, Indonesian, Bahasa, will also be coming, and we're working on securing also other language versions, especially for the constituents and partners in the Asia-Pacific region. So what is this discussion expected to achieve? Of course, trying to get toward a universal definition. And I will briefly share with you the thinking that we are proposing on this. Assess the contribution of the social and solidarity economy to decent work and sustainable development. Provide guidelines, policy guidelines for what is needed for a conducive environment for social and solidarity economy organizations to thrive. And this analysis is based on 20 plus policies and laws that are out there. So I'll share some of the insights from that with you. And provide us in the Office of the International Labour Organization on how to move forward with our ongoing work on the social and solidarity economy, including in the Asia-Pacific region. And we are lucky to have a good cooperation with colleagues like Ben Quinones in research and capacity development around us. And of course, strengthening partnerships. The next slide, Irma, please. So the review of the laws and policies, there are around 25, 27 laws and policies out there, with many more in the making that are at, sitting in parliaments or, prime ministers' offices or ministers' desks. But there is values and principles feature prominently in these legislation. And when we look at the common values that I mentioned, they talk about, of course, the care for people and the planet, egalitarianism, interdependence, the solidarity, the mutualism, integrity, the necessity for transparency, accountability, and then self-governance, the economic democracy, worker ownership, member community ownership. The next slide, please. And then based on these values, what are then the principles that can operationalize these values? And here, the laws, legislation that we have looked at can be consolidated to these 5 principles: that it has to be voluntary cooperation, that social and solidarity economy units have a social or public purpose, they are autonomous and independent, and there is a prohibition or limitation on the distribution of profits, and that there is democratic and participatory governance. Next slide, please, Irma. So based on these values and principles, what are the organizational forms that these legislation indicate? These include cooperatives, mutual societies, associations, foundations, self-help groups, and social enterprises. Is this all inclusive? No, of course, depending on the context. Like in a country with very strong indigenous people's communities, their organizations would also need to be, of course, reflected. The next slide, please. So again, based on these values and principles and organizational forms, what would a proposed definition look like? The social and solidarity economy would encompasses institutional units with a social or public purpose, engaged in economic activities based on voluntary cooperation, democratic and participatory governance, autonomy and independence, whose rules prohibit or limit the distribution of profit. And these units may include, as I mentioned, 5 and others that operate according to these values and principles. And it's not just selecting 1 or 2 value or principle, but a set of these values and principles. So this is going to be one of the key pieces of the discussion that's coming up. The next slide, please, Irma. In the Asia-Pacific region, of course, there are these values of solidarity, mutualism are rooted across the different cultures and traditions. And with the financial crisis of 1997, there was even a heightened sense of reciprocity. And there is the strong historical relevance and of the cooperatives, especially in agriculture and in finance, but also in retail, and more recently, again, being rediscovered by, for instance, informal economy workers organizations, platform economy workers as well. Social enterprises have been gaining momentum in the region, but there is not any policy framework on the social and solidarity economy in that comprehensive kind of framework vision that I have mentioned earlier. The next, please. data exists on different organizational forms that are under the social and solidarity economy, but not necessarily in a harmonized way. Even for cooperatives, they were very recently, in 2018, the International Conference of Labor Statisticians adopted guidelines on cooperatives and we are working with the cooperative movement and ILO, of course, constituents in trying to test these guidelines and see how applicable and relevant they are to move forward in having better statistics. Many regional organizations and networks, some of you are also present, like ASEC here. The next slide, please, that are working on the social and solidarity economy in the region. With respect to the policies, there is the Bill of Framework Act on social economy that's under discussion in the Republic of Korea. Malaysia is about to launch a social enterprise blueprint. Thailand has established a social enterprise office and adopted a Social Enterprises Promotion Act. Indonesia and Philippines are in the process, and India has been promoting the organizational forms under SSE through national and local programs. Now, of course, it's great that there is all this momentum, especially in Anglophone countries. It's quite common that the social enterprise is the form that is being used, but it's very important that it has that expanded scope of the values and principles that I was referring to earlier. So in our engagement at the ILO with our constituents in the region, this is something, we say, yes, social enterprise, but remember, these are the values and principles that, then include all these different types of institutions under its rubric. The next slide, please. And if we were to look at the contributions of the social and solidarity economy to decent work and sustainable development, we have, of course, we can identify many areas. Ben has touched upon a few of these, like gender equality. Your topic today is social protection, digital transition, and of course the transition to the formal economy. So I'll just touch very briefly on these three, and please stop me if I'm running over time. The next one, please. On the social protection side, we have seen in the region, of course, there's many examples. SSE units can facilitate access to social protection for their members, users, communities. For instance, in the Philippines, how cooperatives and mutual insurance providers facilitate enrollment of their members to the National Health Insurance Agency. They can also be themselves providers of services, health or care services like pharmacy, cooperatives, community associations, especially in aging societies of Asia, the long-term care and senior housing in Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, Republic of Korea. This community-based solidaristic care facilitation is on the rise. And also in the rural and informal economies, where workers face many challenges in accessing formal social protection systems, these different types of solidaristic organizations, of course, can play a role. The next slide, please, Irma. Thank you. With respect to the informal economy, colleagues have mentioned, with, of course, COVID, there has been an accentuation of the decent work deficits for informal economy workers. Their earnings that were quite low to begin with as home-based workers, domestic workers, street vendors, waste pickers, construction workers have gone even further back. Some have regained partially, as global research shows, but especially home-based workers are still very far behind. Their comeback has been the most challenged, and we have seen, of course, in with like Self-Employed Women's Association, the home nets around the region, how informal on-account workers can organize into social and solidarity economy units to transition to formal economy, to bargain with public or other public or private players in the supply chain, and collective forms of entrepreneurship, and also, of course, access to different services, including social protection. And the next slide, please. You know this fact, so I will not belabor it, but of the 1.3 billion people, 68% of the population make their living in the informal economy. More than half the region's population do not have social protection coverage, and most of the informal workers are not enrolled in the contributory social protection scheme. So the role of SSE, then social and solidarity economy, comes more accentuated, and the precariousness of informal workers was further reinforced with the pandemic. The next slide, please, Irma. With respect to the digital transformation, we have seen around the world, and I shared with you in the chat some of the studies that are coming up from the ILO on this, how social and solidarity economy units can facilitate access to public social security schemes, including those in the working in digital labor platforms, and workers in on-demand, crowdsourcing, e-commerce are setting up their own units to own and control their the digital work platforms, among the taxi drivers, delivery workers, domestic workers. This is, being documented, and they, with the right support and tools, that could definitely be a stream that can be a part of the toolkit for the platform workers to gain some of their power back. And so the principles of cooperation or ownership, democratic governance, etc., are emerging as among these workers. And I'm sure many of you know there was a conference organized in Hong Kong in 2018 on exploring platform cooperativism in the region, and recordings should be available. I shared the link here, but I can also put it in the chat. There were some very good experiences, examples that could be a part of your knowledge base. The next slide, please. What will happen, of course, with this report, as we are as the ILO constituents are discussing, and the offices, of course, supporting this discussion, some of the challenges regarding the data legislation, support institutions and services will emerge, and the need for a conducive environment that is co-produced by tripartite participation and with representative membership-based organizations is very important in moving forward. And based on the conclusions that will come out from this tripartite discussion in June, there will be, the office is expected to have an office-wide work plan that will help us further fine-tune our collaboration, our partnership, and the services we can provide to our constituents and the SSE partners. Next slide, please. You can, of course, download the report. I mentioned the different languages. You can disseminate the report and hold conversations. We are happy to share with you a fuller presentation of the report as needed. And for as ILO constituents and those with observed status, you can, of course, also follow the ILC general discussion. Some organizations, like the membership-based organizations of informal economy workers, are doing a joint position statement paper on this discussion on how they see the social and solidarity economy in relation to their struggles. And we do have one social and solidarity economy in Asia, a research and capacity development project. It had 6 countries. My colleague Hygiene is sharing the links with you in the chat. That included Malaysia, Philippines, China, Japan, Indonesia, and the next stage is starting now, where we will be very lucky to collaborate also with Ben Quinones again in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Mongolia, and Kyrgyzstan. Thank you very much, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Simel Yasim, for your valuable, informative, and visualized presentation. We would like to also thanks again for your valuable presence, valuable time for us, and also thanks again for Dr. Benjamin for the both of 2 years valuable presentation, valuable time. And for kind of participants, if you want to know more about SCC and ILO, and based on the presentation on Dr. Asim, you can find the link that provided in the chat box by Hygiene. So thanks again, thanks all the participants for your concentration. Now we would like to jump over the next session. Next session is further discussion on digital technology and solidarity economy. I would like to request to moderate the next session of our beloved Bhuti Tuha, Coordinator, Asian Roundtable on Social Protection. Over to you, Tuha.
Thank you, Asas. Maybe before we start our discussion section, I would like to all of you to turn on the camera, and Mantari can help to take a photo. That's okay? Yeah, please turn on the camera. Already? Please. Okay. Mantari, please help.
Okay, on my cue. 3, 2, 1, please hold.
It done?
Okay, once again.
One more. Okay.
Wait. 3, 2, 1. Okay, hold. Okay. Okay, it's done.
Okay, thank you, Mantari. Yeah. Okay, so now we start the third one. I hope that it will be exciting, because we have the first 2 sections. It's a very informative presentation from 4 speakers, including Benjamin Velasco, Vino Lucero, Dr. Benjamin Quinones, and Dr. Simel Yasim. So now I would like to invite all the speakers together with more speakers and participants to participate in the next section. So the next session, we will discuss further on the link between the digital technology and solidarity economy. That's already started to be discussed in the earlier session. And to start with the section, I would like to invite Satro and Punia to present the country initiative on solidarity economy as an initiative that contributed to ensuring social protection and COVID recovery in the country. So Anwar Satro Maru is General Secretary. I would like to introduce you, because you introduced for the whole workshop. You haven't done that. Satro is General Secretary of KPI. KPI, in fact, that the short name of a Confederation of Indonesia People Movement. Satro is one of Indonesian leading activists in organization and alliance worker and other popular movement in Indonesia. So Satro, so now it's your turn to share on country experience relating to solidarity economy. Yeah.
Thank you, Tuhar. Can I share screen?
Yeah. Mantari, please have to share screen.
Okay, you can look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I think I will start from our experience in Indonesia for the cooperative initiative in Indonesia, especially during COVID-19. I think it's very important for the background. This is our situation, a global situation, like for the Revolution 4.0 or digitalization regime, COVID-19 problem, climate, also the capitalism of crisis. The impact we know: inequality, no democracy, discrimination, oppression and exploitation. And now the condition in the world is 1% versus 90%. And
nggak apa-apa Mas. Kayaknya
so in our organization, we have of the principle or concept for our program. We call it three pillar of the program of struggle. The first is politics, economy, and transformative social protection. I think it's important to us for the working people in the world must be half of the principle of the. For example, is before we only focus in the politic issue and advocacy, but our condition is we don't have more learning about the how to organizing of the economy, and this one is for very difficult to how to our target like of the justice, equality, and prosperous. And for the, I will focus in the economic program. We have of the manifesto. The manifesto is we have of the popular economic development. For the first is how to the structuring consumption core with the basic community consumption, and the second is how to the structuring of the organization for the production, and the third is how to arranging of the distribution, and the last is how we structuring of the institutional or cooperative. I think this is very important with the popular economy for production, distribution, consumption, and cooperative. The cooperative refer to production cooperative, distribution cooperative, and consumption cooperative. The all is how we must have of the worker cooperative. Like in Indonesia, after Green Revolution, the cooperative is very bad name because this is like an agency to the make up our production in the rural with the chemical. In addition, I think it's very important how we must have up the credit cooperative like a credit union, but this we can modification and how we must fish with the capitalism. For example,
kredit kooperatif versus bank konvensional, cooperative versus corporation, benefit versus profit. I think it's very important, the principle for why we must building up the worker cooperative. And the 4 pillars of economy are the basis of the concept of populist industrialization. I think it's how we must have of this concept, not only for the cooperative, and not how from the raw material to consumption. I think like of the supply chain, I think it's very important how we can link the all. And for our various practice, before COVID, we have many community cooperative have been born in the various sector for farmer, fishermen, labor, indigenous people, youth, etc., etc. And in time, the COVID is very important because we have to build and strengthen the cooperative is very high. This one is based on our solidarity, like the citizen helping of the citizen, people helping the people, become from the spirit solidarity from caricative to alternative. And for example, is very like of victim and youth. This working together to various community cooperative, including like of the government, starting for the production of the mask, example, hand sanitizer, fermented drink like wine, this is small alcohol, coffee, rice, fish, tobacco, and many products from the community. We also have of the working together to the still in caricative, but now we manage to how to make to the cooperative, like in the with the KPA, Aman, Walhi, PHI. There's many organizations now have of the agenda about the solidarity economy. And for this one, our initiative, KPRI with JAKERNAS, we conduct a series of consolidation and community cooperative. We have a workshop and on the strengthening of community cooperative. We learn together about our experience, how to manage, how to develop of the community cooperative. And after then, we produce up the module for the how to building, how to develop of the cooperative communities cooperative. And until now, we still have many training, many education, offline and online to our community, but still in the Jakarta area. We have up to the next time we have of the how to have of many training, education, and exchange with a cooperative for the fishermen, vision, indigenous people, and so on. I think it's very important how for the building of the workers cooperative together. This is our activity in the COVID era. Thank you.
Thank you, Satro. Have the concept populist industrialization from your presentation. It sounds very nice. The next person we share on the Bhuti initiative in Nepal, that is Punya Prasan Bhusan. And Bhusan is a, sorry, Busan, I can call him Busan. Busan currently leading the Guthi Sansthan in Nepal as a chairperson. His role is to promote and preserve the Guthi system in Nepal with an objective to the welfare of the member Bhuti. So Mr. Busan have been rendering service for the promotion of the public education system in Nepal as well. So now the floor is yours. Mr. Busan.
Namaste. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Punya Prasad Bhusal, chairperson of Guthi Sansthan of Nepal. I am presenting a concept of Guthi for social protection in Nepal. Introduction. It is believed that the Sangh established by Sakyamuni Gautam Buddha with rules and regulations was in fact the first concept of Guthi in Nepal.
Next slide, please, Tuha.
Manjari?
Yeah.
In Nepal, Guthi has been active since Litsavi era 400 to 740 AD approx, and is dedicated to promoting cultural, religious tradition, thus strengthening society. The term Guthi was derived from the Sanskrit word Goshti later. The term Goshti was used to mean a gathering of people with a particular objective.
Next slide.
Yeah. Value and principle of Guthi system. The Guthi was created with a view to accomplishing a work not by an individual but by a group of persons collectively who shared a common goal. Therefore, the history of Guthi was as old as the history of civilization. Guthi came into being due to the realization of the need to live together or one's livelihood, ensure one's life, and the need to work together for a common purpose. As the need of great Guthi was inspired by the religious spirit, the Guthi gave prominent importance to the religion. After this, the organizers of the Guthi created various kinds of Guthis to fulfill various needs of the Nepalese societies. Theoretical and practical aspect of Guthi system in Nepal. Guthi was created for doing work for the common cause. The fruit of the common endeavor is eventually shared by all partners of the Guthi. Guthi is proof of selfless service. Religious feeling is the very life spirit of Guthi, and all the activities of Guthis are inspired by religion. Devotees constructed Saitya temples, inns, sheds, well, water taps, sinking, washing places, ponds, open grounds, inspired by the idea that one who is able must contribute something to the society, and devotees establish Guthis for their upkeep. One of the rules of the Guthi is that any work must be done on an appointed auspicious day. That work can be done in advance but cannot be postponed. According to the concept of the Guthi, seniors must be respected and the instruction of seniors must be carried on. There is no discrimination between the rich and the poor, worldly and unworldly, old and young in the Guthi. all are equal in the Guthi. Old and young in the Guthi, all are equal in the Guthi. Any important activity of the Guthi is done by partners, turn by turn. It is a rule of the Guthi that one who takes the turn must not be given a financial burden if income is not adequate for doing that important activity. The equal contributions must be collected from the Guthias. Guthias have equal right in the Guthi. It is the duty of the Guthias to assist in the work of Guthis. It is the duty of Guthias to preserve the fixed for floating assets of Guthis, but it is the special responsibility of the Thakali, the head of the Guthi, and Guthi, the Guthiar, who takes the turn of doing the important activity of the Guthi to see that the assets are well maintained. Contribution of Guthi in the welfare of society on the protection, preservation, and promotion of multilingual, multi-religious, and multicultural society of Nepal to strengthen social and national unification through the cultural and social norms and values. The protect the members of the society through promoting self-discipline, moral and social value and integrity. To create livelihood opportunity through culture and tourism preservation and development by introducing and promoting Nepal as a multilingual, multi-religious, and multicultural nation in the world. Guthi system is the pioneer institution of Nepal for social services and welfare of the people in need in the society. In the past, Guthi has established party, a public place as a rest room for the visitors and porters, pilgrims, drinking water, tap, well, tea well, guest houses, construction of bridge over the river, distributions of food, grain for the helpless and disabled people, establishment and management of food, grain stored for the disaster victims or in the time of food crisis, conservation of public land for the benefit of people, propose conservation of heritage for the tourism and welfare of the society, construction, management and preservation of irrigation canal Rajguru for the welfare of farmers, provide social protection of each right from the time of embryo to birth to every step of the life and the funeral after the death. Questions and queries are most welcome.
Thank you, Busan. Thank you, Busan.
Welcome.
It's a very interesting your presentation. So here in the Guthi example, we hear very specific case that social and solidarity economy is not only economy itself, but also another contribute to another part, especially linked to the social welfare, right? Social welfare and different part of the life, like religion, culture. So not only economy. It's very interesting. And so now we can start discussion on how to enable the social and solidarity economy as a people movement. And other thing is how to make technology advance more transparent and supportive to the people, and digital technique to support social and solidarity economy. So in this part, so we welcome all the speaker and participant to participate. To start, maybe I would like to invite Dr. Annie Trinuriti as the chair of ASEC to start. So your turn.
Thank you, Tuhan Fanti. The discussions today is very important and very updated issues for all of us. Yeah, we cannot reluctant now from the digitalizations. Though you know I'm not really the digital persons, but I have to learn about this. Yeah. Okay, I think so complete informative issues from the definitions and then about the digital right and then until the definitions of the SSC and the policy supported by the ILO as well with the country experiences shared by from the Indonesia as well from Nepal. Today is very interesting, but I would like to focus my discussions on the digital with the SSE. As you know that the digital, as explained by one of our presenters, is only a tools. Is only a tools, but how can these tools impacted to the community and bring a just economy is depend on the actors. So as you know that I think in the presenters has as well shared as well the Benjamin Trininas that the stakeholders are actually he tried to compare between the public and private, and as you know that in the and then the current there is a three circle of the stakeholders important the SSE, and the first is the state, and the second is the private sector, and the third is the communities. But in the nowadays world, the two bigger circle is dominated by the state and the private sector, while the community as the third pillar is struggling to have the equal role in the development. So my question is just to you all, yeah. As you know that digital is quite linked to the investment, yeah, because we see that you have presented as well who are the main player in digital, all the big name with the Facebook and then Alibaba, all the milliarder in the world, yeah, might be belong to the 1%. So then my questions is, yeah, might be to Benjamin as well, because we are the SSE, the ASEC, ASEAN Solidarity Economic Council would like to strengthen the network of the SSE practitioners in Asia. How can we gradually equip ourselves, the network, yeah, to accelerate the digital literacy to the network itself, to the country's network, as well to protect the communities, the vulnerable peoples, become the impact of become the market, only the market from the digital economy. So this is one of my questions, yeah, because it seems that the definitions of the vulnerability become larger. It's not only access to the social, access to economic resources, but as well access to the digital itself. So, and then the second questions as well, I would like to raise to the CML, because I know that ILO, thank you that ILO put the focus of the conference today on the SSE. But as you know, you already explained that, so in many countries, we haven't yet the national framework on SSE. So we need really the support from the international development organizations to leverage, to bring more equal role of the civil society in discussions of the policy framework. So then, as you know that in Indonesia, for instance, yeah, in many cases that the government policy come later on after the digital issues has become the issues in the societies. So that means It's not the policy first and then digital literacy and then the business with the digital economy that in at first. That mostly it happens that the problem comes first and then the digital policy come later, try to fix it. So then my questions to ILO, how can the ILO try to balance between the progress, the so fast progressing of the digitalizations with the policy that can prevent, that means in advance bringing the framework to have the try to guard that digital economy will guarantee make as well the just economy. Thank you. This is my comment to the presentations, but I appreciate for the organizers who manage this event. It's very excellent. Thank you.
You are muted, Vantu.
Tuha, please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Adi. Before Simao and Benjamin reply to your question, I would like to ask the organizer that mandatory please check with the translation language. I just hear that there's some noise from the other language interpreter. So please check that. Okay, so now maybe we leave the room for Benjamin and Simao to answer question from Adi. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to respond, to the question of Dr. Eri.
Yeah.
Actually, the challenge, for us in ASEC is to mobilize resources. So this is why in the Philippines, there is a National Organizing Committee, and we will meet in April 6th just for this purpose, to try to identify what resources could be put together and become a common resource. Yeah? Because without this practice, we will just be talking about ideas, and we will just be describing the world. The point, however, like I said, the great thinker in the 19th century said, we have to change the world. And to change the world, we have to mobilize resources. And digital technology is very, very conducive, for mobilizing, people. And in a way, we should thank COVID-19 because, we have become accustomed to this kind of meetings. Before, we could not meet because it is we're not accustomed to meeting virtually. But now we can meet. And I have received very positive responses from our partners here that yes, indeed, we need to mobilize physical, financial, human resources and go into the local areas. Yeah, build projects, together, build projects together in collaboration with the private sector, with the government agencies, with the communities, NGOs, have a common approach, what we call a whole of community approach. So we have been talking also to potential investors or funders, for this initiative. So what we are going to achieve in the Philippines or arrive at, we will share with the national organizing committees in Indonesia. And by the way, one of our teams, will visit Indonesia next month. So I will inform you, Dr. Eri, to discuss this. So really, we need to put up concrete projects at the community level. That's number one. Number two, we need to bring collaborators among our partners. We cannot do it alone by ourselves. We need community of builders, and we need a common approach to local development. So we need to ground ECC at the local level, local communities. If we are going to have models of community development using ECC as a framework, you have a model, this becomes, a attraction or something that can show to the world a proof of concept, of ECC. Of course, there are already existing ECC there, but we have to build this up. We have to scale. For example, I just heard, Mr. Om Tapalya about Guthi. I like that Guthi very much. It is an ECC, in Nepal. And my thinking is that there's so many of this kind, in many countries. How do we scale them up? How do we build them up? Yeah. So this is the challenge for us, and this is going to be our theme for the August 2022. Yeah? So hopefully ASEC, and then the leadership of Dr. Eri, will be able to come together, and pull our resources together. Because, and of course, with the partnership of ILO, we have been talking also to COICA, so that, COICA is very much, active in supporting ECC initiatives. So finally, let me just recall, in 1997, I was involved organizing Microcredit Summit. One of the immediate steps of the Microcredit Summit was to convene, bilateral donors and inform them about microcredit, microfinance. And they were able now to convince these bilateral donors to create programs that they could finance to scale up microfinance. This we had to do with ECC. We had to show proof of concept, concrete cases, and convince, bilateral and multilateral donors to put money in it. And our partnership with the UN, particularly ILO and UN Task Force, is crucial for this. So I'm very happy that ILO will now have this agenda of ECC discussed for the first time, in the General Assembly of the UN. So I think, what Simran was saying, was saying, 2022 is a good year, grand year, because they are cooperative. So let's make this happen. We have to do our work. We cannot just share ideas. We cannot share. If we are going to struggle, compete, with the market economy, we have to mobilize resources, financial, human, material resources. This is the agenda of the ASEP 2022. How can we do that? It's a big challenge, but it can be done. It can be done. So that is our agenda. And really, it's time for us to act. It's time for us to put into concrete action our ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. Simao, now your turn to answer.
Thank you, Antu, and thank you, Eribu, for your question. It's indeed, there is this serendipitous convergence of actors, of conditions. Of course, it's not good to talk about, COVID serendipitous, but it has indeed accelerated our ability to use digital platforms in a manner that can allow us to reach out more in terms of to local communities, etc. So there are certain benefits that came out of that. In our toolkit, we have them now to be able to use to help organize, etc. And there is a growing attention from governments and social partners on the human-centered economic models, diversity of organizational forms, enterprise model. And these crises are bringing attention to the social and solidarity economy, its role as a partner, its role in building resilience, in the post-pandemic, post-crisis eras. Having said that, and of course I agree with Ben Quinones full-heartedly, this International Labour Conference discussion is a great opportunity to raise awareness of the policymakers, hence the effort to get the languages into the Asian context. I mean, I hope we would have also, I don't know, Korean, we would have Tagalog, we would have, the other languages, Gujarati and Nepali, other languages of the region. And this is something you can also maybe request from your country's governments or policymakers. We are doing it, of course, from our end, reaching out to our offices, etc. But something also you can do. Having it accessible in the local language is also a great way for grassroots leaders to have better access. That it's not just in, English and I mean, it's in Chinese, that's like a big deal as well. With respect to fundraising the local government in all the countries where the social and solidarity economy has taken root, the engagement with the local government, the partnerships with the local government was very important. The dialogue with them, for them to understand the role of the social and solidarity economy as partners, as a solution, and also as institutions that need to be strengthened as they do serve social and public purpose, as well as strengthening the economic opportunities, livelihoods for their members and communities. Bilateral funding, Ben has mentioned Korea, Japan, I think is another bilateral donor in the region that could be brought up to speed on this topic. And there we are doing dialogues, of course, with our constituents and the partners in the cooperative movement, the academia, and the people working in the social and solidarity economy, multilateral donors in the region. I mean, in the EU, for instance, in the European community has adopted a social economy action plan. That would be the vision for, let's say, ASEAN, to have something similar. African Union is discussing next week a social and solidarity economy strategy for Africa. That would be, the vision, to also partner with UNESCAP and ADB. I don't know, the regional actors. That's the way to scale up. But when we are talking scale up, we also have to be very careful not to fall into this vertical, growth mythology that is in the, let's say MSME sector, because what's important, I think, for SSC organizations is some of the horizontal and lateral, learning that is not, and their representative organizations, unions, federations, networks, platforms. So it's not this, traditional scale up model of growth, because one good example is with cooperatives. How big is too big? They may come to a point where their connection to their members and communities becomes very, mute, and this is something, to also be aware of. But we are also very hopeful with this ILC discussion, and we are planning with our colleagues in ICA Asia Pacific to also do or organize an orientation session on the International Labour Conference general discussion. I did a 10-minute version for you. We could make for other audiences wider, different 30-minute, an hour version to also help improve the understanding and read from a common toward a common vision. Those are my thoughts. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, Sima. So next one, who would like to say? I heard from Sastro that you will ask Mr. Ken Buddha Kusuna Daru from JAKERNAS, Indonesia, to say something, right? Kusuna, you are here or not? No? Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So please.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry,
thank you for the opportunity. I just want to. I actually prepared a presentation for.
Oh, great.
This.
Okay, so you can show your PPT if you have. Great.
Okay. This is my presentation. Okay. First, I would like to talk about the impact. Yeah, the impact of the, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. Please, next slide, please. Okay. The first is the loss of jobs. The increasing cost to obtain basic needs. There are also lots of union members even union leaders fell victim to COVID, yeah, even died from COVID, because there is a lack of knowledge and awareness about the symptoms and appropriate first responses. The government doesn't care about this. Most of the information that is spread online or offline are appropriate for middle class and also upper class, but not for the working class living in crowded environment. The third is social distancing makes it difficult to organize and defend people's rights. And lots of people's rights have been attacked during the COVID pandemic, and we couldn't mount effective countermeasures against this attack because there is a difficulty to organize. Yeah, and the last one is social distress. People have to stay at home all day, especially for women. Yeah, they now have to take care of both the husbands and the children. The husband being stressful because they lost the job, they got suspended from work, and especially in patriarchal environment, it was very difficult for women, and also women have been burdened to find alternate source of income. So it's very difficult for women, and also lots of there was a sharp increase in violence against women during COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Now, how did the Indonesian working class use social media to cope with the pandemic? The first one is to spread awareness, to combat false information about COVID, especially from the conspiracy theorists and also from the government, because there were some even ministers of the Jokowi administration also spread false information about COVID, and that information spread like wildfire in the grassroots, because people don't know who to trust, and especially the knowledge about how to keep people healthy. We even devise short courses online, yeah, to help people cope in a crowded environment such as urban poor areas or worker spots. The second one is to connect trade unions and farmers unions, so that because lots of transportation has been stopped, yeah, we have to bring basic needs from the rural areas to urban areas, and social media helped us do this. The third one is to help people start urban farming in order to help alleviate some of the rising costs of the basic needs. And the last one is to implement this. This is a program that gathered a lot of people's organization. The program is called Rakyat Bantu Rakyat, or People Help People. It is basically a pooling of resources, and by using social media, we can encourage people to donate and also to distribute where it's needed. But what cannot be done through social media? Yeah. Social media we can use social media for exchange of information. We can use social media to effectively pooling, manage, and distribute resources. We can use social media or digital media to help coordination between leaders. But we cannot use social media to relieve distress. People still need actual connection, and that cannot be facilitated fully by social media. And women are especially affected by the situation of the pandemic. And social media and also digital media cannot replace strikes and workers' demonstration, or also people's demonstration, as effective as the effective means to defend people's rights. And the popular organization, the popular movement in Indonesia have suffered back-to-back defeats, yeah, regarding the amendment of anti-corruption law and the promulgation of the job creation law. And even organizing by social media cannot fully replace organizing on the ground. Next, please. These are some lessons learned from our experience during COVID-19 and the use of social media. We are still finding our way to use social media because much of this platform are controlled by celebrities, yeah, and much of the information spread are by them. Popular leaders cannot use social media effectively, and effectively we must rely on the goodwill of the celebrities to spread the message. The second lesson is by encouraging people to use social media or digital media, we also expose them to false information, opinion bubbles, and other risks. So we need to also find a way to counter this. And the third, social media, digital media cannot replace organizing on the ground. We don't know if we can mold social media as tools to support organizers. Next, please. Now, these are my recommendations, and also it's also a question to all of us. Yeah, how to train our popular leaders, our union leaders, our the people who lead the resistance on the ground to create effective messages, to create engagement, and to compete with content creators, because these are the kings and queens of the digital media at the moment. We have to compete with them. Yeah, and how do we do this effectively? The second one, we need to create skills, yeah, to build skills in the people, yeah, to enable them to filter through propaganda, because most of the social media content, they are propaganda, and lots of interest are vying for dominance in social media, and we need to win somehow. Yeah. And the third, global popular organizations, the resistance, must find a way to utilize social media as a support to facilitate organizing on the ground. I'm happy that ILO has started discussion about this, and I hope that the discussion about how to support organizers on the ground will take precedence over other interests, yeah, because still we have defending people's right is first and foremost, yeah, and because this digital economy. Yeah. Somehow we must make it. We must make our own economy. We must make our own market, yeah, and protect this market from the intervention of global economic powers, especially the multinational corporations, especially the big big tech, yeah, and also those big technology market, yeah, because we have to avoid at all costs that this digital economy or solidarity economy must not be just another way to integrate people's economy into the neoliberal market. And that's why cooperatives and direct producers, yeah, how we can connect this globally, yeah, without the intervention of the global economic power. Okay, that's it. That's my.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Ken Daru. It's very interesting, your presentation. Yeah, next to many information. I like it very much. The point that you share, some success in connecting trade union and farmer union, especially under the COVID time, to support each other. And that is really, really good initiative and also benefit from the social media. Maybe next activity that we need to document all the kinds of initiative that using the digital technology for organizing and also other things. So link to your question, who from the meeting participant would like to share or to feedback? Please raise hand in the reaction button. Otherwise, it's difficult for me to recognize. Who would like to say further? No? No one want to discuss further? In fact, that is very interesting in the chat box as well. I see that's many discussion and also the sharing document. For example, the sharing on labor organizing is one ILO study shared by Simel. That is a worker organizing and business model in the digital economy. Or others like a grassroots alternative in Southeast Asia during pandemic, shared by Benjamin. And also Michael Davis from Alliance of Inhabitants in Zimbabwe also says some. And other very newly developed ILO products. That is ILO policy brief on at SE, social and solidarity economy. After this meeting, I will copy all the link next to the PPT and share back to the participant. And now, anyone would like to say something more before we close the workshop? Who would like to say? Last chance. No? If not, I would like to give the floor to Surendra Pratap for closing. Surendra is a researcher, coordinator in the Center for Worker Education in India. Surendra, your turn.
Yeah. Thank you, Tuha. Hope I am audible. Yes? I'm audible?
Yes, you are audible. Yes.
Yeah. This is actually a very challenging task
Yes, you are
to
audible.
conclude the things because there were 3 sessions. But this was so interesting. Session with 3 steps. The first session clearly highlighted the fact that we are facing a height of neoliberalization that is reflected in 2 things. Benjamin Velasco rightly articulated it. It's some kind of digital colonization. Means there are some global corporates who have colonized the whole economy, colonizing the whole economy by use of digital technologies. And then the second aspect means a kind of global digital surveillance kind of thing. Means the data theft and all that, everyone's privacy is at risk. So we are facing this kind of situation. And then third, there are workers, millions of workers in each country. They are working as digital workers. And in most of the countries, they have no status of workers under the labor law, and they are not protected, and they are excluded from social security benefits, and they are facing a lot of problems. Although I would like to highlight here that the presenters, uh, whatever they presented, it also highlighted the fact that there are very few, if any, consistent studies on this plight of digital workers. And probably one task emerges from this session, that we need to have some systematic studies on various sections of digital workers and various aspects of their plight, their problems, and all those things. This can be one of the tasks that we can highlight, get from that session. Now coming to the point, the height of liberalization that is reflected in the digital colonization and the surveillance economy, that is also probably leading to a kind of rebellion kind of situation among the working classes, and 2 kinds of perceptions are emerging. One means capital may also be, you can read various reports of the World Bank and you will find that there are hints that if the things are not controlled, then there may be revolts. There will be revolting kind of conditions. And then the workers, how they perceive that there is no space for them. There is no decent work space for them in the liberalized economy. There is no more space of such thing. No, and therefore they are more radically talking about an alternative to neoliberalism. In the next 2 presentations by Benjamin Quinones and Dr. Simel Isim, you will find the reflection of these things. The ILO is a tripartite body, hence you will find a mix of these 2 aspects, means a fear of revolt that leads the states, employers, and the ADB and all those things to also agree with some kind of social solidarity economy perspective. And there is also another perspective that comes from the trade unions, and their perspective is little bit different from the perspective of employers, ADB, and states. And so in ILO presentation, you will find a mixed kind of these 2 aspects. But in Benjamin Quinones' presentation, you will find that there is a very clear-cut, direct message that we need an alternative to neoliberalism. and the message that he read, no, resist and build. I remember that this message was of a great trade union leader of Chhattisgarh, a state of India, Chhattisgarh Shramik Union, Chhattisgarh Workers Union leader, Shankar Guha Yogi. He was killed by industrialists in 1991. It was his message that resist and build, then Sangharsh or Nirmal. So he on the one hand, he built up a strong working class struggle, and accompanied with this, he also pioneered a great cooperative movement. And if you want to see, there still exists a cooperative hospital in the name of Sahid Hospital. Sahid means martyr. Sahid Hospital. It has grown big now, and it still exists. So Sahid Hospital is still there. If you want to read about this, you can read my book, Worker Cooperatives in India, and you will find the details of that movement and how the cooperatives and the trade union struggle was built by the Shankar Guhan Yogi. So this perspective is largely reflected very clearly in Benjamin Kunos. And then we find in the third session with the grassroots experiences. And here, the very interesting thing, the Anwar Sastro and also the person from Nepal, Bhusal, they both reflected a thing that the cooperative kind of thing is inbuilt in the society and culture, traditionally built in the society and culture of Asian societies. And then the Bhusal explained that how it was historically there, and Sastro explained how this was further developed in Indonesia with his initiative, and he developed a lot of cooperatives there. And I remember a day when I and Sastro was participating in a conference in Thailand, and we were drinking a beer, and he asked me, Surendra, how can we build a cooperative of beer workers, beer cooperative? So he is kind of engaged in building a lot of cooperatives there. He also built a cigarette cooperative, and the name was Conference, and the message was there was going to be a conference, and message was written there. So that is very interesting experience that I also went there and observed the Sastro's experiments there, and also his sharing also reflected that this is a kind of good alternative that is presented by the grassroots labor movement that is creating cooperatives of different workers, and they are actually challenging the neoliberalism. And then we have got sharings with many other people and who added to these things. And apart from this, almost all the participants, they emphasize that if the digital economy is expanding, there is a need for digital literacy and also a knowledge how to protect ourselves from the digital theft and other things. And so there is a need to emphasize in our programs about the digital literacy and all those things. So yes. And then also it was emphasized that don't be carried away with the social media kind of things for organizing. This cannot be an alternative for the grassroots organizing, and this can be actually helpful, a supportive thing to be accompanied with the grassroots organizing. This was in nutshell the presentations of the day, and I will probably like to end it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Surendra, for your very comprehensive brief of the workshop. We do very well, workshop very well, and we stop on time. In fact, that when we talk about the digital technology access as a human rights, we also talk a lot about some very similar concept to other human rights, like inclusive, right? Inclusive. And ILO seen even a very strong concept that people center in the digital transformation. And I think that, and so from the discussion, especially like from Eddie, from how to say Eddie or Adi, from we see that the one who keep power in the game now is a big company and also the government. So how to be inclusive, very much important next to the responsibility of the big company, responsibility of the government, and also international organization as ILO. And it's a very, very much important. Also the role of the people. So the ordinary people, to be inclusive, the people need to fight for. So I hope that we have a more initiative, more idea, collecting the idea from the grassroots and also from the CRO, and that can help people to fight for that. So with this closing from Surendra, I would like to start complete the webinar, and thank you a lot for your participant, especially thank to the speaker, the moderator, and special thank to the interpreter. In this workshop, we have a 6 language. So it's very much difficult for them to complete the job. And also special thank to Zoom organizer. We have Olingua as a Zoom organizer for us. So thank you all participants as well, and hope we meet soon. After this, I will send the recording together with the PPT and the link of the document share in the workshop. Thank you very much. And bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody, thank you.
Thank you.